Vikram-1 rocket is an orbital class launch vehicle. It's a multi-stage rocket, which is 3 stages of solid propulsion and 1 stage of orbital adjustment module that can put multiple satellites in orbit around the Earth. And it is a lot of unique technologies we have employed for the first time in India. It's one of the first all carbon fiber rocket in India. It is extremely efficient and light, and we used multiple effective technologies like 3D printed rocket engines. All the liquid engines on the stage are metallic 3D printed engines. So a lot of process innovation, lot of design innovation has gone into this vehicle, and this is a one of a kind vehicle we have built from India, and thanks to the heritage and wisdom of the ISRO scientists that have helped us, and also the ecosystem ISRO has built with respect to the manufacturing capability in India. We've been able to develop and realize this rocket with the help of a plethora of supply chain ecosystem and also some in-house manufacturing of the rocket.
Why do you think the Indian government, which have made sure to enter the private players in space technology, and which have made private players now to come inside, and how do you think about India's strategy and the policy and the strategy?
So Indian space policy has come in like in the post-COVID era into 2020-2021. Like it has been introduced with an aim to make India play a significant role in the global space economy. India, as we know, currently holds less than around 1% of the global space economy share. India, in terms of technology, India can rub shoulders with the top 5 nations in the world with respect to the launch capability, satellite capability, but still we hardly contribute to 1 to 2% of the global space economy, and that ought to change. And the government realized that this can only happen with an active participation of the private industry in this sector, and all the capabilities that private industry can handle and can cater to the commercial needs of the world, that private industry has to come in and contribute, is the agenda with which the government has introduced space reforms with a noble aim to make the India's share in global space economy to a double-digit percentage from what is currently is a mere to 2%. So with this noble aim, and this is the government realized it's only possible with the public-private partnership actively happening, and enabling private sector to build launch vehicles, build satellite, own their assets in space, and own their infrastructure in space is the only way for to make them find their own business and commercial opportunities around the world, and thereby booming the space economy of the world.
About your team, the effect of Vikram-1,
Yeah.
how the process started, and the experience for the ISRO, how the in-space has given like.
So exactly. So back then in 2022, on November 18, we launched our first rocket to space called Vikram-1. At that time, we were a small team of around 150 people, and with that milestone, we became the first company in India to reach space with our own rocket, and from 2022, the past 4 years, we have worked hard to build the orbital class launch vehicle now. Within 4 years, we've totally manufactured and built, built lot of developmental testing is involved in an orbital class rocket. Like multiple stages are tested, both with the help of ISRO, thanks to the in-space policy. In-space and ISRO have enabled to test full-fledged rocket stages in Sriharikota. Our stage 1 has been tested on ground in Sriharikota, and stage 2 has been tested in Sriharikota. So a lot of test facilities of the ISRO facilities we've used in the developmental process of the rocket. That saved us a lot of cost. Because like establishing a full-fledged test facility is very expensive, but using it and paying for the usage is very much cost-effective, because testing only happens once, and once we build the rocket and in production mode, we do not need to test again. So a lot of developmental costs we have saved thanks to the space policy of the government, and we made a rocket that is worthy standing on the launch pad, ready to lift off. And the InSpace also has formed a national committee of mission readiness and launch clearance who have reviewed every aspect of the rocket thoroughly and certified it for launch today, and we are gearing up for launch in a day or two. Sure, like the first milestone what we need to achieve is to build a reliable rocket that can reach orbit, and Vikram-1 is our first milestone to be able to have a workhorse launch capability that can reach orbit regularly and as reliably as possible. And of course ISRO the even space policy envisages ISRO to focus on the larger reusable rockets, the Gaganyaan missions, the interplanetary exploratory missions, and then and entire small launch market is actually meant for the private industry to capture. And having a reliable workforce of Vikram-1 is one of the first milestones in the company. And achieving for any orbital company, achieving orbit is the most difficult milestone, and we hope to achieve that milestone, if not in this first attempt in this year, in the subsequent attempts. And once we achieve that, our next milestone would be to be able to repeatedly and reliably produce rockets and achieve launch success as we go forward.
Working with InSpace for the last 4 years, and we are seeing the growth of the private sector, we started the startup companies which are hardly 5 or 6 companies, and today we have more than 400 startups. This has happened only because the government space reforms happened in 2020, and therein the InSpace was formed in 2022, and which was inaugurated by our Honorable Prime Minister. And the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister is being getting implemented here, wherein we are seeing now the outcome of our space policy. The Skyroot, which is now going to launch its first maiden launch vehicle, which will be first of its kind, and not only in India but also outside. Hardly any 1 or 2 countries are there which are having a small satellite launch vehicle. If this succeeds, this is going to give a boost to both small satellites as well as the small launch vehicles market. It's going to add value, because if the number of satellites which are going to increase, because there are a lot of requirements because of the applications of the satellite application which is required for the common citizen, and if the number of satellite increases, then we need more and more launch vehicles. And not only in India but also they can feed to the global requirement. So it is going to be give a traction or acceleration to the whole ecosystem of the space. We are going to get more and more applications, more and more satellites, more and more launches. So ultimately it will be useful for all the space ecosystem.
And about the next phase of private satellites, how is the thing in the pipeline?
Private satellites? Yeah, so many companies are working right now as we speak on the communication satellite, also on PNT satellites, also on the Earth observation satellite. And they are all going to get ready by another 2 to 3 years, depending upon their TRL level. And we are expecting that this will be growing further, and they will be creating a market for the launch vehicle.
Particularly on this Vikram-1, what all the indigenous things which have been happening?
So I think the Skyroot has developed its own vehicle, very indigenously, completely designed, built, and fabricated, and everything is done by themselves. And more of the local industries have been utilized, and I think even assembly integration also has been done by them. InSpace and ISRO have been more like an enabler, giving them facilitating all the facilities which are required for the launching, also for required which are for their test facilities which are made available to them.
And about the satellites which is going to be inside that, or the payloads, can you tell about? There are 4.
Sure, there, but right now their objective is not only for the payload, but it is more towards proving the launch vehicle. So the more focus of both our InSpace as well as Skyroot is towards that the launch getting ready for the production once this vehicle get fully successfully deployed by injecting this current satellites into the orbit.
How are we going to be, particularly inside, going to be maintained after 100 years of independence? Particularly when PM have a target of
So I think we are targeting that our decadal vision is already there, where we are saying that we are going to have a complete Viksit Bharat. Also, we are also talking about space economy. What will the space economy at that time? And we also want India to become a global hub. So all that is going to happen. That all more and more.
Today we are here at the spaceport of India, Sriharikota, where we are going to launch India's first private orbital rocket. And Skyroot has launched India's first private rocket in 2022, and there was a test rocket to prove the technology for launching to orbit, where you can put a satellite into orbit. It's the first time in India where a private company has developed a orbital rocket and took it to the launch site and going to take off soon. And it's a proud moment for India, and also globally a very big milestone. Because very few companies in the world have actually launched a rocket to orbit, and very few companies in the world are operating regularly orbital rockets. So this is a very unique capability which the world needs. And as as an Indian company, we are very proud that we are going to launch a first test flight of Vikram-1 soon.
And about the structural weight advantage
Yeah.
in this Vikram-1, what the design is about? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so Vikram-1 is a 7-story tall rocket, and some of the very unique technologies which we are bringing first time from the country, which will be going to orbit is the first rocket which will go to orbit, which is completely built with carbon composite. This carbon composite is built with carbon fiber, which is very, very light, 5 times lighter than the strongest steel. So it's a very high efficient material, making the rocket lighter and more efficient. And the other technology is the 3D printing, where we have multiple engines in the rocket which are fully 3D printed. For example, 3D printing can bring down the number of components in an engine to very low number. You can build hundreds of components of a rocket engine will become like one engine, and it can be manufactured in just few days. So that also makes it an advanced technology which we are going to first time ever, like we are flying an orbital rocket taking a 3D printed engine from the country. And we also have several other technologies, like we have separation. The rocket, as it goes, it separates the stages. In the separation system, we use something called pneumatic separation system, which will be also which will help in, which is testable system and very modular system with first a proprietary system which we are using. So like this, there are several technologies which will be flying in Vikram-1 for the first time in the country, and also it will be one of the very few companies where a private company is launching to orbit.
On the payloads, particularly where
Yeah.
three stages and the private companies which have
Yeah.
conducted.
Yeah, so this launch is like a test launch. It's the first test launch, and typically, private companies in the past, required multiple test launches to get to orbit. So typically, in the first test launch, you don't have a payload. It's because it's more like a test launch. But this mission, we're fortunate to have multiple customers who are flying their payloads and also testing their payloads along with it. So because access to space is very limited, very rarely you get access to space. Very few companies launching to space, and then thanks to all our customers who have utilized this first launch to test their satellites and payloads. And we have some very interesting payloads, there is one payload is testing technologies to remove debris from orbit. There's one payload which is one satellite which is going to measure scientific experiments on solar. And we also have an artwork, very special artwork of 3 scientists which is going to space. Dr. Abdul Kalam, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, and Dr. C. Vikram-1, micro sculptures of them going to space. And also we have one, a special diamond also going to space, amongst many other payloads which are going to launch in this.
Government space policy which have made a private policy, how these have helped, and your Skyroots, what the next
Yeah.
plan and pipeline?
Yeah, we are highly enabled by the government space reforms in India, which has come up a few years ago, where the government has opened up the sector to private players. And then, in fact, we got authorization today for launching India's first private orbital rocket, first time in the country. And thanks to the government of India for opening up the sector to private players, and then enabling private companies to access ISRO facilities like the launch pads which we have, which will be launching from, and also which will help us use the infrastructure, and also the authorization for doing this.